Hello everyone, welcome to episode 145 of the Cherryheart podcast. I'm Sandra, and in this podcast I mainly talk about crochet, knitting and sewing, and you'll be able to find the show notes for the things I talk about in the description box below the video. That's where I put the pattern names, yarn names, useful bits and bobs like that. You can also find my patterns and tutorials on my website, which is cherryheart.co.uk. So thank you ever so much for being here. Thank you for returning. If you have watched before, I really appreciate that. And if you're new, I hope you enjoy it and like what you see. If you would like to support the podcast, you can give me a thumbs up on this video. That's always appreciated. You could leave a comment. If you would like to see more videos, you could subscribe to my channel, and if you want to get a notification when I post a video, you can click the bell as well. So how are you? How have you been? I can't even remember. I can't even remember what I've done since we last spoke, but yeah. Thank you. I know what I wanted to say. I've just remembered. I just wanted to say thank you because I've got behind on all of my comments. Normally I'm quite good at trying to reply to as many as I can and keeping on top of it, but I got behind. So I haven't done many replies to my previous podcasts, the Sweetly Dreaming special. So I just wanted to say thank you ever so much to you here for all your lovely comments and kind words about that. Yeah, that's really, really appreciated. So I released my Sweetly Dreaming blanket pattern. It's up on Ravelry and Lovecrafts so far. It's this one. So yes, so that went brilliantly and you were also very kind about it. So thank you ever so much for that. So that's up now. Oh, and also lovely comments about my hair as well. I have my hair slightly different. I sometimes wave it now. I try to do this kind of wavy thing occasionally. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it didn't. I think it actually worked out that day, so I decided to film with the wavy hair. I haven't done it today, but yes, I just wanted to say thank you for that. Thank you for the nice comments about my hair. Yes, and also I released the Iceland vlog. That was the other thing that's happened since I last spoke to you. Yeah, I popped that up the other Sunday. And yeah, lovely comments on that as well. I am replying to those ones though. I've got back on top of it, so I'm going back to those ones. But yeah, it was quite a struggle to put it all together, to be honest, because we really loved it. There was so many beautiful things to see. Just the scenery was staggering. Everywhere was like a photo opportunity, like literally pretty much everywhere you looked was a photo opportunity. So I had a lot of stuff to wade through. So yeah, it was quite difficult to put it all together. It was one of the kind of, I guess it's the most sort of footage and most sort of lots of little bits of clips that I've ever had to kind of edit together. So it took me quite a while. But yeah, so thank you ever so much for your lovely comments on that as well, because it was good to put together, but my goodness, I thought I might never get to the end of it at one point. But yeah, just the scenery is just gorgeous, is what I was going to say. You know, it's kind of you to say that we took nice film, but honestly the what was there to film was so pretty that, you know, that did all the work for me really. But anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed the video, so thank you ever so much for that as well. I'll pop a link to the blanket and the video. I shall pop that in the down bar for you. Right, let's get started. So many interruptions today. First the postman comes, and then Bert has to bark at him, and then he gets his stuff out of his van and goes walking around, and he calms down, but he does a loop that he ends on our house, so then the dog barks again, and then the doorbell rings for something else, and oh my god, interruptions. Anyway, where were we? So I'm going to start with a little bit of a shop update. update, I suppose. Normally I talk about my patterns in progress, you know, my news is like the pattern I'm working on. This is patterns that are already out, but just I've just been doing a bit of a jig around. So actually got notes for this for once, vaguely organised, or trying to be. So the first thing is Nature's Walk. Where's my bit of paper? And I thought I was organised. Yeah, so Nature's Walk, that's an existing pattern, which is crochet along I did quite a few years ago now. So there's a free pattern that had 6 different squares in the design. So that's still there, that's still free. But the bonus squares were available to buy separately, and it was just the squares you got. You still needed a copy of the other pattern to make the blanket. So I've just changed that bonus square PDF to be like the whole blanket pattern basically. So you don't need the free version as well. You can just work from the one pattern now. I just thought it'd be easier. And also I tend to like, you know, just have a little rejig of my crochet along patterns after they've been out for, well, quite a few years, normally 4 or 5 years or something. So yeah, it's just kind of doing that. So as I have updated that bonus squares pattern to like the Nature's Walk kind of bonus edition, if you like, with the extra squares in, I've just added a couple of other little extras in there. So I've got one of my little colour charts that I like to do, so you can add your yarn colours. So I've got one for each of the colour packs, and then there's a custom one at the end where you can fill your own yarn colours in. And I've got one of my blanket blanks, so that's so you can print that out and you can kind of plan your colours, you know, use it to colour in and sort of plan your yarn colours and where you're going to have them, and get it all sorted out if you want to customise it to your own use. So that's in there. And then also, because Nature's Walk was the first one of my crochet along patterns where I had charts for each of the squares in. A lot of people asked me for the chart for the border, which I didn't do for the original one, just because of the sheer staggering amount of work that goes into producing the pattern. I didn't have the resources to do the border chart at the same time, but it's been something that I've been wanting to come back to, and I have now finally had a chance to do it. So I have got the border chart in there now, so it's sort of quite an upgrade to that pattern, if you like. So that's on Ravelry, and that one's on Etsy as well. So if you had been looking at just the bonus squares and you see that it's changed, don't worry, you still get the bonus squares and you get even more stuff as well. So hopefully that's good. So that I've changed, and I also oh yeah, I just was jigging around with some of my older patterns. There's a couple of them that I've made that were sort of quite a low price ones that I've just made free now. I'll pop pictures of them in here because I didn't write this on my list. There were just a couple on there anyway, so those are now free. And also I had these cherry kisses patterns. So there was a shawl which was called Cherry Kisses, a hat that was Cherry Topper, a scarf that was Cherry Blushes, and mitts that were Cherry Baskets. So they're all separate patterns, but I've just put a little deal thing on now so that like if you buy them all together you get like a huge discount. It's almost 50% off, not quite. I just, you know, I did a reduced price for it and then realised that makes sense in pounds, but I don't know how it works. You know, I'm not sure how it will reduce down in other countries, like other currencies. Like obviously it'll be the same amount, but I don't know if it'll be a nice round number, like, which is how I worked it out in pounds, just to be a nice round number. But basically it's the same as getting 2 patterns free, so you're getting 4 patterns for the price of 2. So there's that. And then new patterns up on Etsy. I've been trying to get a few more of my patterns up on Etsy, just because I know quite a lot of you like to shop there rather than other places. So yeah, it's just been on my to-do list. I've got quite a few up. I won't go through them all, but I thought I'll mention a couple this week and I'll mention some next week, and if anything appeals, you'll know it's there now and you can go and have a look if you want to. So this time I'm going to talk about my moonlit shawl, because lovely Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful, lovely Ali, she's been making a moonlit shawl and she mentioned it. So that just sent a few people over, which was really lovely. So thank you, Ali, for giving me a shout out on that. Yeah, so I thought I'd put that up on Etsy if anyone was looking for that. I'll pop pictures on here. You'll have seen that because I will have already popped, I'm sure. And then I can't read my writing. So what have I put here? Crochet something. Oh, crochet star quilt. That's my kind of, well, again, I don't need to describe it, you'll see a picture, but it's like, it's based on like a quilting design, so like English paper piecing or quilting. Well, no, not English paper piecing, just quilting, scratch that. Yeah, so it's like a quilting block style. So that's on there now. And then there's my clamshell blanket, so the pattern's for a baby blanket, but like many blanket patterns, it's very easy to adapt. So I've popped that up on there. And what was the other one I thought I'd mention this time? Oh, the vintage hangers. So it's just little crochet covers for the nice old wooden hangers. I've got a few of those that I wanted to fancy up. So yeah, I put some, I made some covers, and you know, with little flowers on and kind of cutesy. Again, I'm describing it when I'll have a picture right here, so why am I bothering? But yeah, that's up on Etsy now as well. So I'll put the links to all the things, all the patterns I've talked about, I'll pop that below. But yeah, if there was anything you're particularly looking for, it might well be on there now, even if I haven't mentioned it, because I just didn't want to reel off the whole list now, but I'll do some more next time. Right. That's that bit up, over. The admin bit is done. So let's show you something I'm making. I've only got a couple of things to show you actually, because I've kind of been quite monogamous in my making since we last spoke. So the first thing to update you on is my Icelandic jumper. Let's find the front. Here we go. This is my progress. So I think last time we spoke I had just got a little cast on, provisional cast on here. So what I've done, I got this idea from when I made my Silver Forest jumper. So I've cast on and I've knit the yoke up, and then I'm going to undo the, well, I have undone the provisional cast on, and I knit the sleeves and the jumper body down. So the reason for doing that is that I wanted to get the yoke done first, because that's the bit I've messed around and changed, and I wanted to see if that was going to work out before I didn't want to make the whole body and then go, oh, it's all wrong because the yoke is wrong. So apologies if you were here last time, but I'm just going to do a little recap about what I'm doing. So I saw a jumper on Toast where I liked, so this is this design which I liked, which I wanted to create. I also went to Iceland, as I've already mentioned, and wanted some gorgeous Iceland yarn, which is what I'm using to make it, which is this stuff, the Léttlopi. So I didn't have a pattern for the Toast jumper, obviously. So Toast is a shop, a clothing shop. So I didn't have a pattern for that. So I needed to find a pattern that I could adapt to put this design into. So the pattern I'm using is called, well, I've got different advice on this. Someone said Lykke and someone said Lykke. So I'm not quite sure which is right. But yeah, that's, I'll put, where am I putting things? I don't know where I'm putting things anymore. I'll put it somewhere. Over this side, I thought, because it's kind of clearer, you'll be able to read it. What was I saying? Yeah, so that's the pattern I'm using. But because the pattern, the design, the colourwork design on the pattern I'm using is a different sort of depth. There's more rows to my pattern than the one in the, oh, how do you talk about patterns when I mean different patterns? There's more rows in my colourwork design than there is in the patterns colourwork design. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? So the decreases I had to put in different places. So I was a bit worried about like what my shape, like what shape my decreases would create. That's what I'm trying to say. So I've done this bottom bit sort of all in one, then I've put a decrease either side of this little band here, and then obviously I could just this was all in one, and then I've decreased after that. So I thought it might make it a little bit too, I wasn't sure how even it would make it, but it seems to be okay. It's hard to tell from this obviously, but when I put this on over my head it seems to work out okay, which I'll probably, let's show you. Let's see if I can show you. So I've got a billion different needles in it in a minute. I finished and I put the neckline on, and I had about, was it 2 or did I actually try 3 different goes? I might have tried it 3 times, and I wasn't happy with how far up it was coming. It was coming a bit far up and I wanted it to sit a little bit lower. So I thought, rather than keep jiggling with it when I've just got my little bit of yoke, I'll put a bit of, I'll separate out for the sleeves, and I'll put knit a bit of the body down so I can see how it's going to lie, because it's very hard to sort of guess how the sleeves are going to come when it's all just flapping around, and you haven't separated from them. So I thought, now I'm pretty sure the yoke is looking okay. God, fingers crossed. I shall get a bit more of the body on, and then we can I can worry about finagling the neckline afterwards. So there we are. That's how we're looking. I think it's going to be okay. If anything, I'm a little bit worried about the body coming up a bit big. It's rolling up everywhere, so it's very hard to tell, but I think this is not too tight, which when I did my neckline it brought it up and it looked like it was going to be really up here, so I've left the ribbing and the cast off so I could see how it's sitting. I think when I was casting off my stitches I was casting off way too tight. I think that was one of my problems, and I initially did another set of decreases to match what the pattern said, the Lykke pattern, Lykke pattern. Yeah, anyway, I think the neckline was just making it all pull up too tight, and when I have it down a bit lower than I imagined it, sort of about here, I think it's going to come all right then. Yeah. So I think hopefully my sort of, guesstimating of it is going to kind of work out. There's only 4 sizes in the pattern, so initially I was going to make the larger size, but then I think the fabric I was getting, I don't know, I've got a little bit confused somewhere along the way about needle size. I'm using 4.5mm needles, but the pattern says 5, so I don't know why I didn't just use 5. I did do a swatch, so I can't actually even remember if I did 5mm with a swatch and thought, oh, that's a bit loose. I prefer a 4.5, or at some point in the proceedings I've picked up a 4.5 needle by mistake. I put this down for a little while, and when I picked it up it was the 4.5 needles it was with, so I think that's what I was using. I honestly can't remember my reasoning, so that's great. So yeah, but somewhere in that whole mess of not really being very organised, it looks not too bad, I feel like. So hopefully it's going to be okay. But that's where we're at the moment on that one. Now I've got to get this off, haven't I? Let's see how that's going to come. God. Okay, we're clear. we're clear. I also hope that it feels kind of stiff where I've got my colour work behind. It feels sort of quite rigid at the moment. So I'm hoping, you know, the blocking will solve all of my problems. The magic of blocking, let's hope. I did put some short rows in as well. Again, the pattern had short rows, but they worked. It worked it as part of their colour work. So it was like work to such and such row of the colour work, then do a short row, then do a bit more of the colour work, then do another short row. And I didn't feel confident enough to adapt that idea into this design, so I just did the design and then did the short rows afterwards, which again I just kind of guessed. So as per usual, the whole thing is a bit of a botch job. Okay, so the next one, knitting again. I haven't got any crochet to show you this time. I always feel a bit guilty about that because generally I do more crochet stuff, so if I don't have any to show you I feel that's a bit like off brand or whatever. Anyway, that is just the way it is. So in the next one, again I spoke about last time, so bear with me a second while I catch any new people up. So I'm making this Ginny Cardigan by Susu Knits with, again, yarn I found in Iceland. So these are the three colours that I picked out in Stockhurin when I was in Iceland. And I picked up the colours first, and then it was only when I was holding them together that I suddenly remembered this pattern that I'd seen on Instagram. And she uses grey, 2 pinks and like a mustardy colour. And just the pink and the mustard kind of made me think of it. So the pattern wasn't out at the time. I kind of had to make a guess on yarn, and so I just bought yarn hoping I would have enough. But when the pattern did come out, first of all I found I've got sport weight yarn, the pattern is DK, but I think that's going to be fine. I can work around that. But the other thing is the colours. So she actually uses 2 kinds of pinks. So there's this, you can't really tell on my black and white picture, but there's like a background pink where so like the grey is the foreground colour. So it's a brioche cardigan, by the way. So the grey is the foreground colour and the pink is the background colour. And on the rows where she's got pink as the foreground colour, it's actually a different pink. Now I didn't realise that when I was buying in the shop. So I've only got the one pink, but I thought that's fine. I've still got 3 different colours. It's going to work out. Right, so now we're up to speed. So I started doing a swatch of the pink and the grey, and I was just going to use the mustard as the stripe. But the thing is, I don't love this. Well, it's a bit harsh. I mean, I like it, it's nice, but it's not what I had in mind. And the trouble with garments is you've got to see yourself in it, isn't it? It's not just that it's nice as an abstract thing. It's like, would I wear that? And I think it's just a bit too bubble gummy with the blue and the pink. So that's the right side. And that's the wrong side. So I thought, what am I going to do? I don't know what I thought, but anyway, as a result of that experiment and me not being happy with that, I went and got some grey. So this is just Drops Baby Merino. I don't know what the grey is, it's colour 22. Let's just call it silvery grey. I don't know if that's the actual name of it, but it's a palish grey. But this is a good kind of match because it's a nice sport weight yarn. So I thought what I'll do is I will use, well, this is the question. Now I've got the quandary of what do I do? So anyway, I knit another swatch. What's the right way? Okay, this is the right way of my other swatch. And I also pulled out another pink, which is this one. Now I really like the pink in this, and I think it kind of works quite nicely as a slightly brighter pink. So that's good. The only thing is it's got this lovely mustard flecking in, sort of almost a dark brown, actually, dark brown to mustard. Now I thought that would work because I've got my mustard yarn, and I think overall it does. You know, the colours are good together, but I'm not sure how well the flecking works in the brioche. So in the pattern she does recommend solid or semi-solid coloured yarns, and I thought if I just had one that wasn't, that would be fine, but seeing it knit, the flecks are just a little bit darker than I think I want. What do you think to them? That's the first thing. What do you reckon? This isn't actually a swatch of how I would do it, by the way. So this was, I'm just trying different experiments. I'm going to show you my actual swatches. I've kind of photoshopped my swatch together out of my little experimental bits because I didn't want to knit like 100 different swatches. So my reservation about this pink is those very browny brown bits, which I think are darker and a little bit, I was hoping it'd be a bit more speckly and spread out, but I think they're going to be a little bit more clumped than I wanted. They're a bit darker than I wanted, but also this is a 4-ply yarn, not a sport weight, and it just feels, this row feels different to the other rows, and I don't love it. Just doesn't look quite so nice. These sort of sit and look all springy and lovely. This looks a bit loosey-goosey and just not quite right. Right, so this leaves me with, I think, 4 options. Bear with me, I'm going to tell you every single one of them. So I'm going to chop this up and show you my 4 options. Not literally, figuratively. Chop it up and show you my 4 options. So, option 1 is I kind of stick with what I originally thought, but instead of having the blue, I will substitute the grey, and I'll just stick with this for my pinks, and this is my other contrast. So this will be used throughout, and then sometimes the grey will be predominant and the pinks in the background, and then when it's the contrast row, the pink will be dominant and that will be background, and then when it's the other contrast row, I'll use the yellow and grey. So that's quite nice. I like the pinks and the yellows. I'm just wondering if this works enough as that sort of popping, you know, on the sort of alternate rows. Just the fact that the pink's the fore colour rather than the background colour, I'm not sure that's enough. It just looks a little bit harmonious, and then it makes the yellow stick out. Do you see what I mean? So option 2 is I keep the other pink in. So that's the closest to the pattern. So that's these two are, this is my background colour throughout. These are used on my alternate sort of plainer rows, and then this one and this one are for my, you know, what's the word? The other alternate rows. The others? So that would look like that. So that's the closest to the pattern, but then I've got my reservations about this yarn. And I think in my heart of hearts, I don't think I actually want to use that yarn, as gorgeous as it is. I just don't think it's quite right for this pattern. So now we get on to my favourite options, but I'm not sure which is best out of them. Just looking, I've got them on my phone so I can see what I'm talking about. Right, so option 3. So background colour, that's always, this is my alternate sort of plainer rows, if you like, those two. And then for my contrast rows, I just use the blue and the grey. So that would be one contrast row, and then I use the yellow and the grey. That's the other contrast row. So that looks like that, which I quite like. It keeps like more of the overall pink in, which I like. But it's sort of just, I'm still using my blue, still using my yellow, and there's a little bit of those woven through, but it gives it sort of quite a nice overall feel of pinkness. So that's one. Or the other one is, These two are my alternate rows, so those are kind of my background colour, and then the pink with the grey and the yellow with the grey are my contrast colour rows, which looks like that. So I really like on this one the pink is more dominant, because, you know, rather than it just being the grey is the dominant colour when it's on the main, I don't know how to describe the rows that are between the other rows. So the kind of the background rows, if you like. Yeah, on the background rows the grey is the dominant colour. So when it's the pink with the grey, although you get pink more often, it's less dominant. But when the blue is and the grey make up the background rows, when you do get a pink row, the pink is the dominant colour, so it kind of shows up more even though there's less of it. I don't know. See them side by side. What do you think? Basically one of these two I think is what I want to go for, but I can't quite decide which one. I think I've made up my mind, and then I look at the pictures again and go, oh no, now I'm thinking the other one. I really don't know. I kind of like how the blue and grey are kind of merged together, so that makes them work quite well for a background, and it does show, you know, it puts these other colours into relief quite nicely, so they do contrast and show up nicely. But then I do also like the warmth of the pink overall. So every time I think I've decided on grey and blue as the background, I then see the other one and well, stage one, come up with a billion different possibilities. This is my process, right? Stage one, come up with a billion possibilities. Stage two, ask everyone. So I'll ask you, I need to ask Gary what he thinks. Gary, who, by the way, this is my husband I'm talking about, who in the shop went, oh yes, I thought she'd use 2 pinks. I was like, well, you could have mentioned that. I didn't notice it when I was looking at the pictures, you see. I just thought the brighter pink, I just thought it was showing up more because that's where it was used as the dominant colour, and it just didn't, you know, it was just faded into the background because it was the background colour before. I was like, oh no, I thought she'd use 2 colours. Where were you? Where were you in the colour debate when I was choosing yarns? Nowhere to be seen. Battery. So what was I saying? Oh yes, the process. So yes, think of a billion possibilities, ask everyone about the possibilities, and then hope that that plus time leads me to some sort of conclusion about what I actually want to do. Sometimes when you ask people, everyone goes, ooh, I think you should do this thing. And that kind of immediately makes you go, oh, now I know I want to do this thing. So maybe that will happen. Or, I don't know, maybe I'll just arrive at a decision if I leave it long enough. I don't know. I think the plus side is, because I've got a garment on the go already, I don't need to be in an immediate rush to cast on another garment, so that kind of gives me some time. On the other hand, I do kind of really like it, like the feel of it and how squidgy and lovely it is. And I kind of want to be knitting it. But it's not like I don't have other things to do, so it's fine. Yeah, so let me know, what would you do? What do you think? Which do you think looks better? Yeah. And don't say another colour, for the love of God, don't give me another blooming option to consider. That's another thing that happens. You go, shall I choose colour A or colour P? People go, oh, I think colour C would be lovely. Like, no, my God, I already can't decide. It's so difficult. Yeah. Okay, well, enough about that. I shall let you go now. Yeah, I think that's it from me, actually. So I shall say goodbye now, and hopefully we will both get some lovely, quiet and calm and peaceful crafting moments. Until I see you next time. Bye! Same. No.